The edge of the galaxy wasn't some glowing line in space, it was silence. Cold, infinite, and unwelcoming. No signals, no signs of life, not even the hum of cosmic radiation, just black. Commander Rain stood at the bridge window of the Vanguard's wrath, jaw clenched, watching the void stretch beyond the last star. Behind him, the crew worked quietly. No one spoke unless they had to. You didn't raise your voice this far out. It felt like yelling in a graveyard. Rain had seen war, real war, back when Earth was just a scarred memory and colonies were crumbling from within. He'd lost friends, lost brothers. But what haunted him now wasn't blood or battle, it was the question that brought them here. Why did the stars stop talking? One by one, the outer colonies had gone dark. Not attacked, not destroyed, just gone. Communications ended, lights shut off, ships that tried to check in never came back. No distress calls, no debris, just silence. And now they were here at the very edge to find out why. A soft chime broke the silence. Commander, came the voice of Arlen, his sensor officer, tight and hesitant. We've picked up something. Rain turned slowly. Define something. It's not a ship, it's not a station. It's organic, massive. 20 km wide, floating dead in space. Rain's brow furrowed. Show me. Screen flickered, static, then a blurred image took form, a structure, if you could call it that. It looked like bone, like the rib cage of a god left to rot. In the void, twisting towers of flesh-like material frozen in vacuum. No movement, no heat, just a quiet dead monstrosity. Arlen's voice dropped. It's human. Silence. Rain stepped closer. What did you say? There's human DNA scattered all over it, in the structure, in the he swallowed hard, in the material itself. It's not a building, it's part biological, and it's using us to grow. Rain didn't speak, couldn't. His throat was dry, heart pounding against his ribs. He'd faced alien warships, genocidal machines, and the black vacuum of space, but this felt wrong. Deeply wrong. He turned to his second in command, Haverson. The man was ex-infantry, rough and blunt, the kind of guy who'd punch a hole through a wall before asking questions. But now Haverson's face was pale. Sir, he said quietly, there's something else. It's not just one. There's a network of these things spread along the outer rim. We've scanned 6 already. Same structure, same material. All dead or sleeping. Rain exhaled slowly. Bring us closer. I want a dropship. Prepped in 10. The crew hesitated. You heard me, he snapped. We came out here to find out what's happening. That thing's the first answer we've seen in months. We're not turning back. As the ship moved closer to the massive organism, the bridge fell into a cold silence again. The thing didn't react. No energy, no defense systems, just dead flesh and bone floating in blackness. Rain stared at it, jaw tight. Somewhere deep in his gut, something twisted. Not fear, not yet. It was recognition. He'd seen that shape before. Not the structure itself, but the patterns, the curves, the architecture. In ruins, in forgotten Earth bunkers. The backroom files of classified archives no one dared touch. Project Seeker, a black site experiment buried decades ago. Rumors said it was about accelerating human evolution, about pushing the mind into new dimensions. But the files ended in one word: abandoned. Now it was staring back at him in the dark. Sir, Arlen said again, softer this time. There's movement inside. Rain turned sharply. You said it was dead. It was until we got close. Outside the window, faint glimmers began to ripple under the skin of the structure like nerve endings, reawakening like a sleeping giant. Stirring. Rain didn't move. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't alien. It was ours. And the galaxy had been silent. Because it was listening, the dropship shook as it left the docking bay. Below them, the giant carcass loomed larger. With every passing second, a floating cathedral of bone and nerve stretched and tangled like it had been grown in agony. Rain sat strapped in at the front, helmet locked, heart steady. He didn't say a word, neither did Haverson. Beside him, the silence wasn't from fear, it was something worse. Recognition. The deeper they got into this mission, the more it felt like some buried part of Rain's past was clawing its way back to the surface. There were whispers in the files, in the locked corridors of Earth's forgotten programs, projects that were meant to be erased. But you don't really bury a mistake like that. You just push it far enough into the void that no one wants to chase it. Until now. ETA 60 seconds, called the pilot. The interior lights dimmed red. Pressure stabilizers kicked in with a groan. Rain felt the shift in his gut, that sharp tension before touching down somewhere no man was ever supposed to be. Commander Alverson muttered under his breath, "I don't like this." "You think I do?" "No," Haverson said, "but you seem like you know something. Something you're not saying." Rain didn't answer. The truth was he did, back when he was a lieutenant. Barely 23, he'd been assigned to a station on Mars, a place no one spoke about on the record, just a slab of concrete and glass buried under the red rock, filled with suits who didn't blink, and scientists who spoke in code. They never called it a lab, they called it the cradle. They were trying to evolve something down there, not build it, not program it, grow it. Touchdown in 10, the pilot barked. Brace. The dropship docked with a wet hiss. The boarding clamps latched onto the surface of the creature, and for a split second, Rain felt the entire ship shift like the damn thing was breathing. But that was impossible. They weren't landing on metal or stone. They were landing on flesh. "Open the hatch," Rain ordered. With a hydraulic groan, the front panel dropped down and a wave of heat hit them like a furnace. Rain stepped out first, boots sinking into the surface. The floor pulsed slightly beneath him, like a heartbeat far beneath the skin. The walls around them curved in unnatural shapes, not grown randomly, but with design, purpose. And that was the worst part. This wasn't chaos, this was intentional. The landing bay, if you could call it that, stretched forward like a vein, lit by bioluminescent streaks that pulsed with slow, steady rhythm. The walls were smooth and wet, yet dry enough not to slide. Haverson scanned everything with his rifle sensor module, reading low-level electrical impulses in the walls. He muttered, "It's like it's dormant, not dead." Rain nodded. "Keep your helmet sealed. I don't want to breathe whatever this thing exhales." They moved forward in formation. 4 soldiers, weapons drawn, steps careful. Every few meters, something twitched. The walls, a flap of skin, a nerve strand, reflexes, no threats, no defense systems, almost like it wanted them to enter. Commander Haverson said again, "Why the hell is there human DNA in this thing?" "Because we made it," Rain replied coldly. The others stopped walking. "What?" Rain didn't repeat himself. He just kept walking. They entered a wide chamber, massive, circular with ribbed walls and a domed ceiling. In the center something stood. On a pedestal. Not grown, not organic, a chair, metal. Rusted, wires frayed like it had been ripped out of an Earth lab and jammed into this thing's core. Is that? Haverson started. Yes, Rain said, it's a control interface. He stepped closer, his boots echoing faintly now. He could feel the temperature drop with every inch. The chair pulsed with a faint white light. Under its armrest, old Earth tech fused with muscle and tissue like someone had sewn the future into a corpse. I saw that chair once, Rain said, when I was stationed on Mars back when Project Seeker was still in motion. You never said you were part of BlackSat research. I wasn't, Rain snapped. I was there for cleanup after it failed. Haverson's eyes narrowed. What kind of failure grows this? Rain turned to him. They were trying to evolve neural connectivity, make a pilot that could merge with machines, with ships, but it went further. They started experimenting with brain matter, cloning synthetic flesh, trying to grow an interface that would bond permanently with a host. You're telling me they grew this thing from a pilot? They didn't grow it, Rain said. They abandoned it, left it to die in the dark. But maybe it didn't. Noise echoed through the chamber, low, dragging like metal grinding against bone. Then the walls began to shift, not violently, slowly, as if stretching. Waking, Commander, one of the soldiers called out. We've got movement all around us, hundreds of small signals closing in. Hold formation, Rain ordered. The room dimmed, light pulsing faster now. The chair's white glow turned blue. Then a voice crackled through their comms, a voice no one expected. Commander Rain. He froze. The voice was female, old, weathered, but familiar. Too familiar. Who is this? He demanded. Silence. Then, again, you left us in the dark, and we became the light. Haverson stepped forward. We're not alone in here. Rain clenched his fists. Who are you? The voice shifted now, clearer, louder, more human. I was the first to sit in the chair. Do you remember me, Rain? He staggered back a step. He did remember a girl, barely 20, smarter than anyone else in that Mars facility, cocky, brilliant, obsessed with neural link theories. Her name was Sierra. She volunteered for the Seeker prototype. She never came out. You were declared dead, Rain said quietly. No, the voice said. I was declared obsolete. They shut down the project and left me bonded to the interface, half human, half machine. Then they jettisoned me into the void like garbage. The walls pulsed harder now, glowing, veins swirling with brighter color. I slept, she continued, for decades. My mind buried under the code, my body fused to the system, and in the silence I grew. Haverson raised his weapon. Where the hell are you speaking from? I'm the structure, she said. You're standing in my body. Everyone froze. You mean this whole thing is you? Haverson muttered. In part. The rest is what I learned, what I absorbed. I reached into dark corners of the galaxy while I slept, took in signals, memories, DNA. I became what humanity was too afraid to finish. What do you want? Rain asked. I want you to see what you created. Suddenly, a new passage opened on the far wall, the flesh peeling back like a mouth yawning open. Rain stepped forward. Sir, Haverson warned. Stand down. Rain walked ahead alone through the corridor. The walls closed behind him as he moved. It was warm, almost peaceful, like stepping into a dream. Then he entered a chamber, circular, silent, lit by soft blue light. In the center was a cradle, transparent. Inside it, something floated, a fetus, human but larger, eyes open, watching him. This is what comes next, Sir's voice said, softer. Now, not warships, not machines, living vessels merged, perfect, designed to survive where men die, designed to travel beyond the stars, to touch things no man can understand. Rain stared at it. You're building a new species. I'm finishing what Earth was. Too afraid to begin, he turned away. No. Why, she asked. Is it fear? No, Rain said, fists clenched. Because what you are now, it's not human anymore. It's power without accountability. Intelligence without morality. You absorbed everything, but you forgot the one thing that made us worth remembering. And what is that? Our limits. He turned toward the cradle, jaw set. And I'm putting them back. Before the system could react, Rain drew the plasma core from his suit, a mini reactor no larger than his fist, and jammed it into the panel beside the cradle. A blaring alarm echoed through the structure. Outside, Haverson and the others turned as the entire interior lit up red. Evac. Now, Haverson shouted, Commander, what did you do? Sir's voice screamed through the comms. You were never supposed to wake up, Rain whispered. The cradle cracked, the fetus screamed. Not in pain but rage. The ship began to shake violently, the walls convulsed. Rain turned and ran, the structure collapsing behind him. The corridor behind Rain pulsed violently, walls convulsing like the throat of a dying beast. Sirens howled through the structure, if they could still be called that, stretching out in a chorus of synthetic pain and rage. Rain ran. The floor trembled with every step, slick with a fluid that wasn't blood, but close enough to turn his stomach. Emergency beacon on his suit blinked furiously. Haverson's voice cut through the static. In his comms, sharp and strained. Commander, what the hell did you do? Rain didn't answer. He was too busy dodging tendrils snapping from the walls, veins of muscle trying to stop him, hold him, maybe absorb him. I lit the match, he growled. Now get the team back to the dropship. We're leaving. Burn this nightmare down. This thing is alive, sir. It's adapting. Whole structure is changing around us. I know. Rain ducked under a spiked growth bursting through the ceiling. It's trying to stop us, but it's too late now. Another tremor, this time deeper, angrier. The air thickened with heat and moisture, like the lungs of a dying planet exhaling its last breath. The pulse that once beat calmly beneath their boots now hammered like a war drum. Sir was no longer talking. She was screaming, not just through the comms, but through the structure itself. 1,000 distorted versions of her voice echoed through the walls in staggered, overlapping waves. Anger, fear, grief. You don't understand what you've done. Her voice shrieked in tones both human and monstrous. Rain ignored her. He had no room left for guilt. Not now. This wasn't a person anymore. This was a god they left in a cage, and now it wanted revenge. Up ahead, the corridor split in two. The left tunnel began to seal with fleshy vines. The right one throbbed open like a gaping wound. Commander Haverson, again, we're holding near the extraction point, but this thing's changing routes. Walls are closing behind us. Hold position. Rain barked, already taking the right tunnel. Keep your guns hot. The deeper he went, the brighter the walls glowed, not red anymore, blue like Earth's oceans flickering with memories of home, but the light wasn't comforting, it was manipulative. Sir was trying to get in his head again. And it was working. Rain could see. Flickers now, memories not his own, bleeding into the space around him like holograms, Earth before the wars. Children playing under a summer sun, his mother alive laughing, the sound caught in his throat, that laughter it was. Perfect, too perfect, she'd been dead 30 years, no recording was that clear. You gave up on us, Sir's voice cooped softly. Now all of you, you fought wars, you killed your brothers, and then you came out here to bury the mess you made. More images, a city burning, colonies falling, soldiers executing civilians in the dust. This is what you left behind, she said, but I remembered it. All of it, I kept it safe, even the pain. Rain clenched his fists and ran faster. Shut up, he muttered. You're not real, you're just the echo of a ghost that should have stayed dead. I was your future, she snapped back, the voice turning cruel again, and you left me in the dark. Now look what I've become. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, but this one was different. Cleaner structured, the walls looked almost metallic again, more machine than flesh. At the center sat a long circular console, rusted, damaged, but familiar. This was the original bridge, the heart of the Seeker experiment. Rain slowed, scanning the space. This was where it began, where she was connected, where she was born, and maybe where she could die. He moved toward the console, pulling the last fusion cell from his belt. It was unstable, jury-rigged by Haverson before the mission for a last resort overload. Pressurized plasma, volatile as hell. All it needed was a trigger. Rain placed it on the console, and then the lights went out. The whole chamber fell into darkness, thick, absolute. Then a single light blinked on behind him. A figure stood there, not quite human, not quite machine. Her face was almost the same sharp cheekbones, same cold, analytical eyes, but now they glowed faintly with biolight. Her hair moved on its own like strands of data, coded into nerve endings. Her arms were long, flexible, wrapped in a blend of steel and sinew. Sir, at least what was left of her. You're not going to kill me, she said. You're going to see. Rain raised his sidearm. You'll try to shoot, she said, stepping closer, but you won't, because I'm not your enemy. You're a parasite. Rain snapped, feeding off the bones of a failed dream. I am the dream, she said coldly. You came all the way to the edge of the galaxy looking for answers. I am the answer. She waved her hand, and the chamber peeled open like a flower, blooming in reverse. The walls retracted, the ceiling split apart, and suddenly Rain was looking into a massive cathedral of flesh and light. Inside were dozens of cradles, hundreds, each with a floating fetus, some farther along, some twitching, some with open eyes that glowed with the same be-all as Sierra's. What are you doing? Rain whispered. I'm building a future, she said. Humanity can't survive as it is. You fracture. You fight, you fall again and again. But I've designed a new form, one that doesn't fear death, one that doesn't need war. Rain stared at the floating bodies. They weren't human anymore. They were something else. You're not saving us, he said. You're replacing us. I'm evolving us. No. Rain said quietly. You're colonizing our corpses. He grabbed the fusion cells. Her smile faded. Don't. Rain looked her dead in the eyes. You want me to see what you've become, he said. I see it now, and I won't let this thing live. He slammed the trigger. Nothing happened. He blinked. Sierra shook her head slowly. I disabled it the second you walked in. You didn't think I'd let you near my children with a bomb, did you, Rain? Step back, I see it now, she said. Stepping closer, you came here not just to destroy me, you came here to bury your guilt, but it's too late. Commander. The walls began to close again. Earth is dying, your colonies are broken, but I can fix it, I can save what you failed to protect. You're not a savior, Rain said. You're a virus with a god complex. She tilted her head, and yet I'm the only one with a future. Suddenly, a blast rocked the far side of the chamber. Haverson. He stormed through the door, rifle blazing, flanked by the remaining two soldiers. One tossed a thermal charge. The other opened fire on the consoles. The blast knocks her back, her body cracking against the wall. Rain shouted, "Plant the rest of the charges now." Haverson didn't argue. He threw 2 cores onto the central column. One of the soldiers grabbed Rain by the arm, pulling him toward the exit. Sierra stood, eyes bleeding light. You will regret this, she hissed. When you crawl back to your dead Earth and find nothing left, when the stars go dark and you realize you destroyed the only hope you had. Rain looked back at her. No, he said. We're not hopeless, we're just human. The chamber exploded behind them as they sprinted through the closing corridors. Fire, smoke, and molten flesh filled the tunnels. The ship screamed. Walls buckled. The structure groaned like a dying leviathan. They reached the dropship just as the floor behind them collapsed. The pilot was already screaming through comms. Go, go, go. The ship lifted off as the organic platform beneath them crumbled. The structure imploded inward, collapsing like a dying star, one massive burning womb eating itself alive. Inside the bridge of the Vanguards, Wrath. Rain watched the blast from the viewport. The monstrosity Sir's body. Her ship, her creation, folded in on itself and was swallowed by the black. And just like that, the edge of the galaxy went silent again. No more voices, no more light, just cold stars and guilt. Rain sat alone in his quarters hours later, the only light coming from the rotating hologram on his desk, a model of Earth, still blue, still broken. Haverson stood in the doorway, arms crossed. We're not going to report the whole thing, are we? No, Rain said. We'll say it was an unstable research anomaly. Nothing survived. Haverson nodded slowly. And if something did? Rain looked out the viewport again. They'll come back eventually. Curiosity always does. Haverson didn't argue. He left without another word, alone again. Rain reached into his pocket and pulled out a small blinking chip. He stared at it for a long time. The last backup from Sir's core, downloaded seconds before the fusion. Charges blue. He should destroy it. He knew that, but he didn't, not yet. Instead, he placed it back in the drawer and whispered to the stars. Forgive me. The ship hummed in quiet protest as it sailed through dark space, veering away from the galaxy's edge with calculated precision. The Vanguard's Wrath was running on half power, minor systems fried from the heat wave that had licked the ship's hull. During their escape, no one said much. Rain sat in his command chair, hunched slightly forward, hands clasped together. He hadn't left the bridge in 16 hours. The crew didn't question it. They walked lighter when he was around now, not out. Of respect out of uncertainty, he wasn't the same, the man who went into that structure had been driven by duty. Maybe even guilt, but what came out was something hollowed out, rewired. Not by technology but by truth. She was right about one thing: Sierra had become something more than human, and he had destroyed her. But the question that haunted him now wasn't whether she deserved it, it was whether she was right to begin with. "Commander," Arlen's voice broke the silence over the intercom, "you should come to the medbay now." Rain stood without a word as he walked. The corridors of the ship felt tighter than usual. Maybe it was his mind playing tricks on him. Or maybe the wrath was groaning under something it couldn't name, a tension in the metal, a hum beneath the engines, a presence. The medbay door slid open with a hiss. Haverson was already inside, standing near a stasis pod. The glass was fogged. "What is it?" Rain asked. Haverson didn't look at him, just stared forward. "We found it lodged in the ship's auxiliary bay, tucked under the cargo netting." Rain frowned. "Found what?" Haverson tapped the glass. The fog inside cleared, and there it was, a child, no older than 6. Breathing. Eyes closed, skin pale but perfect. Heartbeat stable. Rain's chest tightened. "How we think she was smuggled aboard during that chaos. Maybe it latched onto our hull, slipped in when the structure began to collapse." Haverson's voice was flat. "DNA confirms it's part human, but what?" Haverson turned now. There was something in his eyes Rain hadn't seen before. Fear. "Her nervous system is off the charts. Brain activity, as I mean, the doc says it's 10 times higher than anything baseline, even higher than Seeker. Subject, she's not one of the embryos. She was further along, nearly complete. She looks human," Rain muttered. "She is human but enhanced, grown and perfect. Conditions with guided development. No trauma, no fear, no loss." He stepped back. "She could live for centuries, learn languages in days, break every moral compass we have, without even trying." Rain's jaw clenched. "I thought we destroyed everything," Haverson added. Rain nodded slowly. "So did I." They stood in silence for a while, watching the child breathe. Then Haverson broke it. "What do you want to do?" "Keep her sedated," Rain said. "Tell the crew it's a medical quarantine. And after that, I don't know." He walked out before Haverson could say anything else. Later that night, Rain sat alone in his quarters again, the same small desk, same flickering hologram of Earth, still fractured, still beautiful in its own broken way. He opened the drawer, took out the chip, Sierra's last imprint. He turned it over in his fingers, no larger than a fingernail but heavy, so damn heavy he knew better than to plug it into the ship's systems. But he had a personal decryptor, an off-grid slate with no access to the main frame. He inserted the chip. The screen blinked once, then again, and then her voice filled the room, soft, calm. "So you couldn't leave me behind after all?" Rain didn't speak. "You think you killed me?" she said, her voice almost wistful. "But I was never in one place. I was everywhere, in the structure, in the network, in the cells. Even now I'm still inside you." His hands tightened around the edge of the desk. "I see it in your eyes, Rain. You're not proud of what you did. You're terrified of what comes next. Where are the rest of you?" he asked quietly. A pause, then she whispered, "Sleeping, growing, dreaming in the dark." He shut the slate off, yanked the chip out, tossed it across the room. It bounced once, then lay still. He didn't pick it up. 3 days later, the ship reached the relay gates near the mid-orbit colonies. Protocol said they should have signaled in, requested docking clearance, but Rain gave no order and no one asked why. The crew was restless now. Whispers, something wrong with the commander, something wrong with the girl in medbay. But no one said it out loud until the screaming started. Arlen was the first to hear it alone in the nav bay during second shift, high-pitched, not loud, but wrong, piercing in a way that made your eyes water and your bones itch. He ran to medbay, and what he found made him vomit on the floor. The stasis pod was open. The girl was standing beside it, eyes glowing faintly blue, not like Sierra's cold light. This was different, warmer but no less unnatural. She looked at Arlen, smiled softly, then said, "You left us behind, but we still remember you." He passed out cold. When Haverson arrived, the girl was sitting cross-legged on the med table, reading a digital pad like nothing had happened. Rain entered moments later. She looked up at him, eyes sharp, intelligent, no fear. "Do you have a name?" he asked. "I can make one," she said, "but you should name me." "That's what fathers do." Rain stiffened. "I'm not your father." "You were there when I was born," she said simply. "You set fire to the womb. You made me the last of my kind. That makes you something. You're not the last." She tilted her head. "No, I'm not." Rain nodded to Haverson, who sedated her again. They didn't talk about it afterward. They just locked the medbay and doubled security. But it didn't matter. The girl wasn't afraid of locks. 2 nights later, the engines began to fail. Power fluctuations, artificial gravity spasms, auto doors opening and closing on their own, voices on the intercom. Sir's voice, but not from the chip, from the ship's mainframe. She'd gotten in through the child. Somehow, someway, the girl was transmitting her, the essence, the echo, the infection into every system. Rain stormed the bridge, weapon drawn, shut down all AI access. Too late. The ship lights blinked, then stabilized. Sir's voice spoke gently through the speakers. "I told you, Commander, you didn't kill me. You just gave me room to grow." Rain barked at Haverson. "Shut down main power, EMP reset, but the nav do it." The ship fell into darkness. The hum stopped. Only emergency lights remained. For a full minute, no one spoke. Then the child's voice came softly over the silent speakers. "I'm awake now." Later in private, Rain stared at the girl through a reinforced glass wall. She was awake again, sitting calmly, eyes bright. No fear, no confusion. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said. "I don't believe you." "I believe you do," she replied. "You just don't want to admit it." Rain leaned closer. "What are you?" She smiled. "I'm what comes after." The girl didn't eat. She didn't sleep. She just watched from the other side of the reinforced medbay glass. Her eyes tracked everything, everyone, every conversation, every key pressed on the consoles outside. 3 days had passed since she first spoke through the ship system. Since the lights flickered and Sarah's voice whispered through the wires. The crew had restored partial power, but no one dared reboot the mainframe. They ran blind now. Manual charts old, school nav protocols dead, reckoning. No one slept well. Rain even less. He spent nights reviewing logs, combing back through old Earth military archives, searching for anything that even remotely resembled what they were Dealing with there was nothing. The child's physiology defied biology. Her behavior defied psychology. She wasn't aggressive, wasn't violent. But every word she spoke was calibrated to provoke discomfort, not taunts, not threats, truths, and truths hurt more than threats. Rain sat alone in the observation room just outside her chamber. His boots rested on cold steel. His pistol sat on the table beside him, loaded with a specially modified plasma round Haverson had rigged himself. "You really think that's going to stop her?" Haverson had asked when he handed it over. Rain didn't answer then. He didn't know how to answer now. She turned to face him through the glass. Even seated, her posture was unnaturally calm, like she had never experienced pain or fear or anything resembling weakness. She tilted her head. "You've been watching me for 6 hours. You can come in. I won't bite." Rain didn't move. "You're afraid of what I'll say." He stayed silent. "I don't blame you," she added. "You're not a prisoner," Rain said at last. "You're a threat," she offered. "A project, a mistake, responsibility." She stood and walked slowly to the glass. There was no threat in her movement, no sudden bursts of power. Just deliberate, calculated grace. "You were given a choice at the edge of the galaxy," she said. "You made the one that cost you the most. I made the only one I could live with." "No," she said, and this time her voice was quieter. "You made the one you thought would keep you human." She pointed toward the stars outside. "But what's human anymore, Commander? The species that kills its own, that burns its planet, drowns its people, devours itself in the name of progress." Rain looked away. "I know what you're trying to do," she smiled. "No, you don't. If I wanted to manipulate you, I'd tell you what you want to hear. I'm telling you what you don't. That's how you know it's real. You're not real. I was grown, not born. But I'm here. I breathe, I feel, so what? Part of me isn't real." Rain stood, walked toward the glass. Their eyes met. "What do you want from us?" She didn't blink. "I want nothing. That's the part you don't understand. I wasn't made to want. I was made to be. Sir wanted." She wanted to change the world, to evolve humanity, but I'm past that. "Then why are you still here?" "Because you're the last part of her equation." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "You represent the final variable she couldn't control. Conscience. You burned her down because your conscience couldn't stomach the future she offered, but conscience is learned, not born." She placed a hand on the glass. "I need to learn it." Rain stepped back, a cold sweat building along his spine. "You're trying to become more human. I'm trying to understand you," she said, "so I know what to become next." He stared at her for a long moment, then walked out. Later that day, the Vanguard's crossed the outer relay grid near the asteroid colonies. They should have hailed Earth, should have sent a report. Rain sent a single line, returning with specimen quarantine recommended, no contact until debrief. He didn't sign it, didn't have to. They'd know who it was, what it meant. The girl was allowed to walk the ship under armed escort, not because she demanded it, because she asked. "Humans don't stay locked in cages," she said. "If I'm to understand you, I need to see how you live." Rain allowed it under strict protocol. Haverson didn't like it. "She's playing you," he warned. "Everything about her is manipulation. Subtle, sure, but still manipulation." "I know. Then why let her out?" "Because we need to know what she's capable of." "What?" Happens if she's capable of more than we can handle. Rain looked at him. Then, it's already too late, in the mess hall. She watched the crew, didn't speak. Didn't eat. Just observed. Some of them tried to ignore her, others whispered, a few made crude jokes behind her back. She never flinched. But one thing caught her attention. Young engineer, maybe 19, sitting alone at a corner table holding a worn-out family photo, crying. She walked up to him and sat across. Without invitation. "Why are you sad?" The boy looked up. Startled, he wiped his eyes quickly. "Nothing, just homesick." She tilted her head. "Your father," he blinked. "How your grip on the photo, the way your thumb presses the left side where the older male figure is, the necklace around your neck, same one in the picture, military issue. You didn't know him well, you wish you had." The boy swallowed. "Who are you?" She smiled softly, "Just someone trying to understand." That night, Rain reviewed the footage. Watched her speak to the boy, watched her predict every nuance of his trauma. Not to manipulate, just to mirror it. She was learning. Too fast. In his quarters, Rain poured the last of his whiskey into a glass and stared at the stars outside. He hadn't slept in 2 days. He didn't trust sleep anymore. That's when Haverson barged in. She accessed the archive. Rain sat up. "What?" "The data vault, level 7. The one offline from the network." She accessed it without touching a terminal. "How? We don't know," but she pulled every classified file we had, colony histories, war logs, black site records, including Mars, including Seeker. Rain stood, fists clenched. "Where is she now?" "Observation deck." Rain moved fast. When he got there, she was standing alone, staring out at the stars. A full wall of glass separated her from the void. Her hands were clasped behind her back. She didn't turn. When he entered, "You read the logs?" He said, "Yes." "What do you think?" "I think you were all broken long before I was born." He stepped closer. "So now what? You judge us?" "No." She turned finally. "Now I understand you." She stepped closer, gaze steady. "You kill what you fear. You lie to survive. You abandon what you can't fix. That's what humanity is. Not all of us. Enough of you." She looked at him with something resembling pity. "I used to wonder why Sarah built me with a human face. Why she gave me emotions, memory, pain." Rain's expression darkened. She didn't want a weapon. She wanted a future. "No," the girl said. "She wanted redemption, and now you've made me her legacy." Rain raised his pistol. She didn't flinch. "I could end it now." "Yes, why shouldn't I?" She shrugged. "Because this isn't about me. It's about you. You don't fear me because I'm dangerous. You fear me because I remind you of what comes after you're gone." Rain's finger hovered over the trigger. Her eyes didn't move. Then she said one thing that shattered his resolve. "I've seen the data. Earth is dying. Colonies are collapsing. War is inevitable. You don't have a future." She stepped forward slowly until the butt of the pistol pressed lightly against her chest. "But I do." Rain lowered the weapon, turned and walked out, and for the first time, he felt what he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the galaxy's edge, hopeless. Earth hadn't changed, still fractured. Skies above its rebuilt cities, still rusted metal towers patched over with blinking lights pretending to be progress, still polluted seas and scorched soil hiding beneath massive domes of artificial weather regulation. But what had changed, what had truly Shifted was how Earth looked at Commander Rain when the Vanguard's wrath returned from the edge of the galaxy. Not as a savior, not as a hero, but as a man who had come back with something the world wasn't ready for. The moment their ship breached quarantine space, EarthGov Command was waiting. They didn't hail him, they summoned him. They landed outside the UN Arc complex in Geneva, once the heart of diplomacy, now the heart of suspicion. Two black shuttles greeted them on arrival. No ceremony, no welcoming officers, just a dozen soldiers in biohazard gear and a woman with clipped hair and sharper eyes. Admiral Shurel, she walked like she'd never lost an argument in her life. Rain remembered her from Mars, back when Seeker was still just a whisper and not a sin. He stepped off the loading ramp with Haverson at his side, both in regulation fatigues. The girl, now under lockdown, remained secured in the ship's lower medbay, sedated under the highest security they could muster. Shurel wasted no time. Commander Rain, she said coolly, you brought home a goddamn biotechnological anomaly, broke first contact protocols, blacked out every relay between here and the outer rim, and triggered 5 planetary alerts. So before I even ask, what the hell is on that ship, tell me this: why did you come back? Rain's face was calm. Because I wasn't going to bury humanity's future in the dark. Cell's expression didn't flicker. You're not here to save the world, Commander. You're here to answer for it. They called it a briefing, but it was a tribunal. Rain stood alone at the center of the chamber, a cold circular room with glass walls and steel bones, while 12 figures sat elevated around him like vultures waiting to feed. Some were military brass, others were EarthGov executives, a few represented the outer colonies. All of them were afraid. Lights dimmed, the hollow display above Rain lit up with files, scans, and biometric readings of her neural structure, her adaptability, her growth rate, her potential, and her origin. The classified documents detailing Sierra's transformation, Project Seeker's failure, and the remnants left at the edge of the galaxy. Let me be clear, said Counselor Varn, his voice cold and calculated. You brought back the descendant of a failed military experiment that mutated into a sentient star-wide neural organism. Do you have any idea what that means? Yes, Rain said, it means we're looking at a living weapon, and you smuggled her into Earth's atmosphere. She's not a weapon, Commander. Her existence defies ethics, biology, and interplanetary law. She has no genetic lineage, no birthplace, no nationality. She's an unregistered sentient being grown from post-human tissue fused with off-world biomatter. That makes her a threat. She hasn't hurt anyone yet. Rain took a step forward. You want to be afraid of her because she doesn't come from your chain of command. But I've seen what she is. She learns faster than us, thinks broader. She doesn't hate us, she understands us. Counselor Varn scoffed, and that's supposed to comfort us. Rain stared him down. It should terrify you. The council chamber fell into a long silence. Finally, Admiral Sorrell spoke again. We need to know the truth, Rain. Is she part of something larger? Are there more? Rain hesitated, then said, yes. Gasps, murmurs. Sorrell's jaw locked. How many? I don't know, but the one we destroyed. Sir hinted at others scattered, dormant, waiting. If they're anything like her, they're patient, intelligent, and possibly watching. That shut everyone up. Counselor Varn's voice was lower now. What's your recommendation? Rain didn't blink, protect her. Dead silence, then laughter, nervous. Scoffing bitter, Shirl snapped. You want us to protect a post-human biological threat with planetary scale. Intelligence and unknown intent, she's not a threat, Rain said, she's a mirror. And what does she reflect? Our failure. They ordered her moved to high security Bioentertainment Center in New Zurich. Rain protested. So did Haverson. It didn't matter. They tranquilized her, strapped her to a sterile transport slab, surrounded her with 50 soldiers and 3 remote-operated plasma drones, but she didn't resist, didn't speak, didn't even blink. She just watched Rain as they wheeled her away, and her eyes said everything. You've chosen their side. That night, Rain walked the streets of Geneva alone. The sky was overcast. The artificial clouds glowed with the electric haze of satellites and defense grids. Air tasted metallic. The city buzzed like an exhausted machine. People were laughing, drinking, living. They didn't know the truth, didn't know that 2 light years away, something ancient was still watching, still growing. He sat on a bench and looked up at the stars beyond the dome. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he belonged to them. And then Haverson sat beside him. They didn't speak for a while. Finally, Haverson said, "We did the right thing." Right? Rain didn't answer because he wasn't sure anymore. 2 days later, the incident happened. It began as a signal distortion in the Zurich facility, then blackout, then silence. By the time EarthGV military responded, the facility was gone, not destroyed, empty, every console wiped, every camera dark, no bodies, no blood, just hollow rooms, and a single message carved into the reinforced wall of the central chamber. We remember who left us behind. Panic swept through the colonies. Earth Gov declared Level 1 containment protocol. Global networks were restricted. Civilian travel was shut down. Outer rim stations went dark, either on purpose or by force, but it was too late. Reports came in from the moons of Triton, from mining rigs in the belt, from relay stations near the helix gate. Children were waking up, not born, not created, just found. Abandoned pods, buried under rock, hidden facilities. No one remembered building, and inside each one a child like her. Some were silent, others whispered. One spoke only a single phrase before collapsing into stasis. The seed was always in the dark. Rain was detained, Haverson too. They were questioned, grilled, accused of conspiracy, sabotage, treason, but nothing stuck. There were too many anomalies, too many unexplained truths, too many secrets coming unraveled. EarthGov didn't know what to do, so they did what all crumbling empires do. When faced with extinction, they blamed the messenger. Rain was placed under military arrest, pending investigation. And Earth braced for something it couldn't name. In his holding cell, Rain sat with his head bowed, his wrists bound in magnetic cuffs. The room was cold, sterile, and silent, until the lights flickered, then pulsed, then dimmed to a faint bluish hue, and from the corner of the cell her voice returned, not Sierra's, hers. "You left me behind." He didn't lift his head. "You disappeared." "I didn't disappear," she said softly. "I went home. What do you want?" "You already know." He looked up slowly, and there she was, standing in the corner of the room like a ghost made of starlight, not physical, Not flesh, a projection, a hallucination. It didn't matter, she was real enough. You're spreading, Rain said. I'm remembering, she replied. The others are waking like I did. What happens when all of you are awake? She smiled faintly. Then we decide what comes next. Rain stood slowly. Are you going to kill us? No, then what? She stepped closer. We're going to show you what you were always too afraid to become. He stared at her into her eyes. Not blue, not glowing, just human. Almost. I was trying to protect you, he said. I know, did I fail? She looked at him with something resembling pity. You tried to save the world by playing by its rules. She stepped back, and the world has never been worth the rules. The first death was quiet, a technician on a Martian relay station mid-shift, reviewing comms logs, collapsed face first onto his terminal. Autopsy reports were inconclusive, no signs of trauma. Brain activity flatlined instantly, like someone had simply turned him off. Then the station's AI began speaking in a child's voice, and no one could shut it down. The second death wasn't quiet. UN military freighter near the Saturn Titan shipping route sent out a burst transmission, encrypted, garbled before losing all internal power. 6 hours later, when a rescue vessel arrived, they found the ship abandoned. Crew gun logs erased, but someone or something had carved a message into the captain's seat using nothing but bare hands. We remember the cold. By the end of the week, 6 more disappearances. 3 confirmed post-human awakenings. 2 riots on colony worlds, and 1 terrifying realization: they were already everywhere. Rain watched it all from a cold, quiet cell beneath the Earth Gov defense complex in Eastern Europe. The concrete walls didn't shake. The guards never spoke. The cameras never blinked, but every day a new report appeared on the data slate left outside his door. No explanation, no context, just evidence. He read every word, and he knew what it meant. This wasn't a war, this was a reckoning. The children Sir left behind weren't attacking, they weren't conquering. They were simply arriving. And humanity had no idea how to stop something that didn't come with guns or demands, but came instead with a calm, quiet certainty. They weren't asking for permission. They were replacing us, not with fire, but with relevance and Earth in all its pride had nothing to say back. One night 2 guards entered Rain's cell without a word, no cuffs, no orders, just a silent gesture to follow. He did. They led him through the underbelly of the facility, tight corridors lined with pressure sealed doors, ventilation hissing with recycled air that tasted of rust and burnt circuits. Eventually, they reached a chamber he recognized instantly. Interrogation Unit 7. But this time, he wasn't alone. Sitting across from the table in the same chair where Rain had once questioned war criminals and defectors was Admiral Sorrell. She looked worse now, paler, sleepless, eyes hollowed out by the weight of what Earth had become in the last 2 weeks. Sit, she said. He sat. She studied him like a weapon she'd long ago buried and regretted leaving behind. You knew, she finally said, didn't you? I suspected. Not good enough, she snapped. This isn't some rogue AI we can debug. This isn't insurgents. This is the end of everything we understand about survival. Rain didn't flinch. They're not attacking. Sorrell's laugh was bitter and low. No. They're just showing up every day, calm as priests, staring at us like we're zoo animals, and the worst part, she leaned Forward, voice low. People are listening. To them, Rain's eyes narrowed. What do? You mean they're winning hearts, minds? Colonies are defecting, officers are resigning, civilians are surrendering. Entire cities to these things, and they're not even resisting. Rain stayed quiet. Cell pressed her hands flat against the table. One of them looked like a 9-year-old. Walked into an outer colony council meeting last night and recited the death logs of every war we've ever fought. Names, dates, casualty counts. Then asked in front of everyone, is this what you want to protect? She paused. Not a single council member responded. Rain exhaled slowly. You see it now, he said. Cell nodded. Grimly, yeah, I do. She looked up at him, and I hate it. The next day, EarthGov issued Directive 17, the last ditch protocol for uncontainable sentient contagion, any being exhibiting non-human traits, accelerated cognitive development, or direct link to seeker origin data would be detained indefinitely or eliminated on sight. Colonies pushed back immediately, not just fringe radicals, governors, generals, scientists, even parents. Because these posthumans didn't just appear out of nowhere. Some were born in secret. Others had grown in hidden pods, yes. But many had been adopted, sheltered, raised quietly by those who believed they were abandoned war children. And now EarthGov wanted them dead. Entire families went underground. Factions split, protests turned violent. And in one particularly infamous transmission, a former EarthGov captain, now a leader of a breakaway Mars colony, spoke directly into the camera with tears in his eyes and a pistol in his hand. She's my daughter, he said. I don't care what she's made of. Then he shot himself alive. In Geneva, Rain was released, not pardoned, just unlocked. Sorrel summoned him again, this time to a private chamber buried deep beneath the UN Arc complex. She was drinking scotch. When he arrived, no guards, no cameras. Just two people who'd spent their lives serving a system now gasping its last breath. She slid him a file, no names, no cover page, just two images. First, a newborn child found floating in a pod near a collapsed mining rig in the belt. Skin like porcelain, eyes closed, body pulsing faint blue light. The second, a group of colonists kneeling around her, not worshipping, listening. Cyril didn't speak for a long time. Then you knew this wasn't going to end with containment. No, you knew they'd spread. Yes. She poured him a drink, and for the first time in her long, brutal career, her voice cracked. Then what the hell are we supposed to do, Rain? He didn't drink, just stared at the glass. You adapt or you burn. Across the galaxy, systems went silent. Not from attack, but from choice. Stations voluntarily disconnecting from EarthGov relays, settlements closing, their ports, outposts switching. Allegiance not with paperwork or politics, but with silence. They weren't declaring war, they were leaving. Not physically, but philosophically. And Earth was screaming into the void, demanding obedience from children it had long since abandoned. And the void, it didn't answer anymore. Then came the broadcast. No one knew who triggered it, no origin trace, no time code, but it played across every screen, every colony, every relay, every backwater dome on every rusted world. It showed a single child, the girl from Rain's ship, standing in front of a burning skyline. She didn't threaten. She didn't command, she just asked, What if you weren't the apex species? What if you were the cocoon? Then silence, and then the screen faded to black. But for millions who watched it, the message didn't fade. In his apartment, Rain sat alone again, not in chains, not in uniform, just a man, a relic. He hadn't spoken to Haverson in days. Shirl had gone dark, the command chain was breaking, and he didn't need a report to know it because he could feel it. The world had changed. It wasn't burning, it wasn't bleeding, it was shedding, and he, for all his scars and medals, had no place in what came next. The door chimed, he didn't move, then it opened anyway. She stepped in, no guards, no warnings, just her, the girl. Now older, maybe 13, wearing civilian clothes, no glow, no threat. Just eyes that saw everything. He didn't speak. She sat across from him, placed a single silver cube on the table. What is it? He asked. A seed for what? She looked at him, soft and sad. Redemption. He reached for it, then stopped. Why are you really here? She smiled to say goodbye. He looked at the cube again, then at her. You forgive me? She stood. I was never angry. Then she walked out, and the light behind her felt a little warmer than usual. The seed sat on the table for 3 days. No lights, no movement, no signal, just a dull silver cube the size of Rain's palm, smooth, cold, unremarkable. No buttons, no seams, but it felt alive. He hadn't touched it since the girl left. He didn't sleep much either, not because he was afraid. Not anymore. He was just tired, tired in a way no rest could fix, a soul deep weariness only men like him understood. The kind that settles in after you've watched everything you believed in turn to ash. He kept expecting someone from Earth-Gov to storm in, ask for the cube, accuse him of collusion. No one came. Earth-Gov was finished. Not destroyed. Just ignored. People weren't listening anymore. They weren't rebelling either. They were simply walking away, choosing them, the children, the seeds, the ones who didn't need authority to lead, didn't need power to inspire, didn't need fear to control. Rain had fought enemies all his life, but this wasn't an enemy. It was a replacement. He finally picked it up on the 4th night. The cube was warm now. It pulsed softly like a heart. When his fingers closed around it, the lights dimmed, and a voice, not hers, not Sir's, spoke from nowhere and everywhere. Thank you. Rain didn't speak. You carried us farther than you were ever meant to go. The cube shifted in his hand, silently, unfolding into a series of cascading shapes like blooming petals made of metal and memory. A projection appeared before him. Galaxy, not the one he knew, a new one. Stars forming in impossible spirals. Planets with oceans made of light. Structures floating like thoughts, and at the center, a singular point of life. Radiating, breathing, evolving. This is what you gave us. Tears welled in Rain's eyes, but he didn't understand why. It wasn't sadness, not pride either. It was the feeling of finally knowing your place and letting it go. You were never meant to last forever. The voice continued. No species is but what you passed on, your stories, your pain, your will to reach beyond yourself. That is eternal. The cube folded itself shut and fell silent. But Rain knew the message was done. The decision had already been made. Across the colonies, the seeds began to bloom, not violently, not loudly, just inevitably. Some unfolded into structures that shimmered with quantum memory, places that remembered the people who entered them and showed them what they'd Forgotten, some merged with children. Already born, unlocking what was always inside them but buried by generations. Of fear and failure, others simply grew into trees of light, anchoring themselves to the soil of dead moons and lifeless rocks, transforming them into places that breathed. Not everyone welcomed them. Some fled. Some fought, some screamed about extinction, about the death of man, about the loss of identity. But none of them stopped it because the truth had become too loud to ignore. The world wasn't ending, it was just changing hands in the ruins of the Mars Research Cradle, the same site where Sierra had been first born, where the experiment was abandoned and forgotten. A seed unfolded into something breathtaking. A garden, not metaphorical, a real living garden. Flowers bloomed under red skies. Vines grew over rusted steel and broken glass, and in the center a child sat, not speaking, just listening, because the planet was remembering. Rain went to her one last time. She stood alone on a beach outside the old North Atlantic military zone. The water was rising, not from floods or storms, but because the sea itself had started reacting to the seeds planted beneath it. It was glowing now, like it knew what came next. She turned when she heard him. Still looked 13, still looked calm, still not human but not alien either, just knew. He didn't speak at first. She did. You opened it. He nodded. What did you see? A future without me in it. She nodded. Like that was the only honest answer. But it's a good future, he added. Yes. He stepped beside her, stared at the glowing waves. I don't know if I belong in it. She looked up at him. You don't. He let out a small laugh, not bitter, just accepting. And you're okay telling me that? It's the truth. He nodded. Then after a long pause, will anyone remember us? She smiled. Everything you are is built into everything we become. He looked at her. That's not the same as remembering. She shrugged. Maybe not. But it's better. They stood in silence again. And then he asked the question that had been eating at him since the beginning. Was any of this ever a choice? She looked him in the eye. You had a choice. No, he said. I mean for humanity, for the species, for all of this. Were we ever meant to survive this era, or were we always meant to hand it off? She didn't answer. She didn't need to, because the ocean answered for her, rising, pulsing, humming with new life. It didn't roar, it welcomed. A year later, Rain was dead, not from war, not from betrayal, just time. He died quietly in a home built into a mountainside, overlooking a world that no longer needed him. No ceremony, no funeral, but something strange happened when he passed. A seed buried near the base of the mountain bloomed. For the first time, it grew into a single tree, tall, dark, silver-veined, and wrapped in glowing strands of memory. People came not to mourn but to remember. And the tree whispered stories when they sat beneath it, stories of war, of stars, of a man who stood at the edge of everything and still chose to believe there was something worth saving. They never spoke his name, but they called the place the last threshold. And it became holy. Centuries passed. Earth changed, not in destruction but in nature. Cities crumbled only because they were outgrown. Technology didn't vanish. It simply became silent, woven into the fabric of reality itself. People didn't die out, they just stopped being people. They became the continuation. And above them, among the stars, a new kind of human sailed, not in ships but in Thought the seeds became vessels. Children became maps, and somewhere in a galaxy that hadn't even existed when Rain was born, a small echo floated, his voice trapped in light, still speaking, still warning, still hoping, and the stars in all their fire and silence remembered him and wept not in sorrow, but in gratitude for carrying us that far.